welcome to Miss Emily's Kitchen. I'm Miss Emily. This is a show that my husband and I actually created. His name's Andrew. He does all the camera work and editing. Say hi. Yeah, so this is a show we thought about and something I've actually wanted to do for a long time. Just kind of have fun in the kitchen and share some recipes with everybody. So tonight we're actually going to be making some lasagna, which is one of my favorite things to make, especially for company, because it's one of those things, once you start making it, you can make a whole bunch. You get an assembly line going and you can just crank out like 4 or 5 pans. All right, so first off, we're going to need to take a look at our ingredients. So you're first going to want to start and get at least 1 box of lasagna noodles. Really depends how much lasagna you want to make. I mean, really, once you start making it, you can make so much. I have 2 boxes here because I want to make at least a couple pans for leftovers. I bought a giant bag of mozzarella cheese. Really, if you're going to make 1 pan, you're probably good with like 2 8-ounce bags of cheese. I want to have a lot because it's one of my favorite things, so I bought a big bag because I'm probably going to use all of it. You're going to need at least 1 pound. I bought 2 of Italian sausage. Our grocery store was out of Italian sausage, so I bought Italian meatballs. I figure it'll work about the same. As long as it's pork and it's Italian seasoned, you're good. You can buy sweet, you can buy hot, really whatever you like best. I just went with mild because I'm making this for company and they don't really like spice too much. You're also going to need everything to make your sauce. You really could go jarred if you want. If you want to make it fast, I totally get it. There's some great jarred sauces out there. But since I'm already making all this, I figure why not make it from scratch, because then I can have lots of leftovers to freeze. So most important thing is going to be your Italian seasoning. You can buy kind of whatever bottled mix you want. Oh, it's one of my favorite smells ever. I get mine from an Italian grocery store from where I grew up, but that's totally up to you. And then everything for sauce. I make mine equal parts tomato sauce and tomato paste. You're also going to notice everything is generic brand because really we like to do it on the cheap here. And to me, you cannot taste the difference. So equal parts tomato sauce and paste. I'm going to do about 3 cans of each so I have a lot of sauce so I can have leftovers. And then these things are kind of up to you. I like going with a little bit of garlic salt, a little onion powder, and some salt. You could skip the onion powder and just go chopped onions if you want, but I'd rather not have my whole house smell like onion right now. So everything here we got for ingredients, really you can make a good pan of lasagna for under 20 bucks, which is one of the best parts about making it for company. You don't have to overspend. You're really not buying a lot of protein, which is usually where your high dollar comes in. So everything here, under 20 bucks, pretty good for a meal. Next, we're gonna have to take a look at everything you're gonna need to make it, all your cookware and everything like that.
And now let's go through all of our cookware. First, you'll need a large 9x13 pan, a large crock to cook your sauce in, a large pot to cook all your noodles in, a colander, a pair of oven mitts, some aluminum foil, a whisk, something to stir your sausage with, a ladle, a small rubber spatula, and a can opener.
All right, now that we went over all of our ingredients and our cookware, we're gonna start cooking. So the first thing you wanna do is fill up a pot of water about halfway full, and then crank it all the way up as high as your heat will go so you can get some water boiling for your noodles. Then in whatever pot you're gonna make your sauce in, you're gonna want that at least like medium or medium-high heat because you're gonna start browning some sausage. So we'll let that start heating up and start opening up our sausage. And the nice part is you don't need to cook this in any kind of oil because the sausage has its own fat that it'll cook in. So typically you'd have like a big chunk of sausage, but these are just little meatballs, so it doesn't matter. We're just gonna throw all of those on in. Alright. So that'll take a second to start heating up. We're gonna throw in the rest. I love using the wooden cookware for this because it's so nice and easy to clean later on. Oh, this guy doesn't want to come out, does he? And it's also nice because it helps avoid getting all that gross meat on your hands. All right, so while your water's heating up and your sausage is starting to cook, we're gonna open up all these cans. And via the magic of camera work, they're all magically open. So we can start pouring in all of our cans of sauce. 2. And you really just kind of want enough that you're gonna get your meat all covered. All right, so 3 cans of sauce and 3 cans of paste. I like these little skinny spatulas because you can actually get in there instead of having to use a spoon. Or some people I know actually take off the bottom part of the can too, and you can just push it all on through. But it's kind of messy, and I'd rather not, possibly get cut by a can. All right, so 3 cans of sauce, 3 cans of paste, and then we've got to do 3 cans of water. So I'm gonna go fill up each of these one time and pour it on in. It's nice because then you can get all that extra tomato sauce on the inside of the can and not waste. So 1. 2. And the last one. I'm glad I used a big enough pot because I feel like this one is going to be just full. Oh. All right, so your meat's still in there. You really could brown it all first, but honestly, it's going to sit and cook long enough that it doesn't really even matter. Honestly, right now, you're probably thinking this looks a little bit gross because there's no seasoning in it yet, so it kind of just looks like a big pot of ketchup, but we'll get there. Right now, I'm just kind of breaking up all those chunks of meat. So that way it's not meatballs, but more of a meat sauce. And this is all just going to continue to cook. Really, you can make this part first because sauce, people usually like to let it cook for at least like a half an hour or so on the stove. I don't always have that much time, so I kind of just make it and cook it however long I want. All right, so now that you've got all your tomato sauce and paste in the pot along with your sausage, we're going to add in all of our spices and seasonings. So first, your Italian seasoning. Really, this is up to you. Just use however much you want. I kind of just like to throw it in by pinchfuls and taste it as I go and see what feels like enough. So honestly, I'm probably going to do a couple big pinches because this is a lot of sauce. And just kind of go with whatever you feel like. Especially if your Italian seasoning is spicy, I would start low. Just with a couple pinches and see how you feel. So Italian seasoning, good amount of salt. It's really, nothing is worse than like bland tomato sauce because then it will taste like ketchup and that's kind of gross. All right, and then your garlic salt, just a couple shakes, not too much because you already have quite a bit of salt in there. You just want a little bit of garlic. And then your onion powder. If you were gonna use chopped onions, I'd say about a whole chopped onion. Onion powder, maybe a teaspoon. I'm just gonna eyeball it because I don't really measure too much. And then this is where the whisk comes in handy. Some people just like to use the big wooden spoon. Doesn't really work the best for me, especially when you're trying to break up all that tomato paste. And then this is just kind of going to simmer for a while. Usually I try to have it go at least like 10 to 15 minutes. If you have more time, really you can just let your tomato sauce go. Some people let it go even all day because that acidity just kind of works its way out of it. You've got everything stirred in. Obviously you can't really do your taste test right now because your meat's still raw and that would be dangerous. But once that's all cooked in, then you can start kind of tasting and seeing where it's at. Of course, I got some meatballs stuck in my spatula. All right, so we're kind of just gonna put the lid on and let this go because all the sausage needs to cook. Your tomato sauce can warm through. And then once, I'd say give it at least like 10 to 15 minutes and then you can check back in on it. All right, so now our sauce has been cooking for about 15 minutes. So we're gonna kind of check in on it and see where we're at. Be careful because it does like to spit a little bit at you. So I'm gonna turn it down to about like a more medium low. Now that our meat's mostly all the way cooked, we don't need it quite as piping hot. Because right now it looks like a boiling pot of lava. All right, so our sausage is fully cooked, which is great. Now, since I cook the sausage in the pot, you also get all that great flavor and like all the fats from the sausage cook into the sauce. If you're worried about fat content, you can always cook your sausage ahead of time, drain off some of the excess fat, and then put it in with your sauce. Totally up to you though. I like the extra flavor. And the sausage that I got is not too greasy. Sometimes you get little pools of oils if you do that, so it's really up to you. So now we're gonna taste it, see if it needs any more seasoning. We couldn't really taste it earlier with the raw meat in there because dangerous. Well, that is super hot. I almost burned my tongue. Okay, it needs a little more Italian seasoning. So really just kind of keep going until you're worried it's almost too much. But that's why we start small, so that way you can add more as you go. So a little more Italian seasoning and a little more salt. Because really this is where all your flavor is coming from. All right, so you stir that in. And this is why people say you can let your sauce just go and go all day. Because the more and longer you cook it, the better flavor you're gonna get. All right, let's try it again. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Best part about this, if you make too much sauce for your lasagna, you can always freeze this and have it on pasta. You can do stuffed shells with it. You can kind of do whatever you want. It's a nice base. All right, so our sauce is done. So I'm gonna turn that off so it stops spitting at me. And then your water is boiling. So we're gonna add all of our noodles in. If you have to add them in batches, that's okay. Make one box first if your pot's not big enough, because these do take up a lot of room and you don't want them to break. So we'll see how many will fit. So I think we'll do at least one box for now. And if they look like they're too tall for your pot, don't worry. They'll cook pretty quickly and start to shrink down so you can maneuver them around in your pan. And if there's broken bits in the box, that's okay. Honestly, no one's gonna notice if you have perfectly even layers of your lasagna. They're just gonna notice that it tastes good. All right, so we'll kind of work these around. So you can follow the box instructions, but then you're gonna get really mushy lasagna. So really, you're gonna wanna cook these until they're just tender where they're starting to, kind of fold in on themselves, but not so much that they're gonna overcook because they're also gonna get baked. So really, honestly, I'd say no more than like 5 or 6 minutes. The box will tell you 10, and if you do that, it's gonna be a pile of mush when you're done. So we're gonna let these sit and cook down for about 5 minutes, and we'll be right back in all this. All right, so our noodles have been cooking for about 5 minutes, and really you can kind of see they've started to get to that point where they're just pliable, but they're not too cooked through yet, like they're not translucent or anything. So it's perfect. So we're gonna go ahead and drain them. Turn that burner off. So most of the time, everybody will tell you don't rinse your pasta because all that great starch really helps thicken your dishes. For lasagna though, I'm gonna rinse it because I need to be able to touch these, and right now they are blazing hot. So I'm going to rinse them in a little bit of cool water. And it's nice because rinsing them off also stops that cooking process. If you shock them with some cold water, that way they're not going to sit and overcook while you're assembling. So now that our noodles are done and all drained, we're going to start setting up everything over here for our assembly process. So our noodles, I got a little towel down so they don't leak everywhere. And then our sauce. Ooh, I need some oven mitts for that. Oh, shoot. I need the green one down. Also, make sure if you have really hot pots that you have something to protect your countertops. Because otherwise you're going to burn a hole right through them and that's not good. All right. All right, so for your assembly process, you're going to have your cookware, whatever size pan you're using, or a couple if you're going to make a lot, which is nice. Your noodles, your sauce, your big bag of cheese, your ladle, and some tin foil for when you're done. So we're going to start assembling. So first you're going to want to take a really small ladle of just mostly sauce. Try not to get a lot of sausage in there. And you're just going to put some on the bottom of the pan so your noodles don't stick. I'm just going to do a little bit more. And the easiest way to spread this around is just kind of tilt your pan till everything's covered with a nice little layer. And then you're just kind of going to start layering. So if you are using a different size pan than this and your noodles don't quite fit, you can always, stack them on top of each other or even like rip them. And if you need for a smaller pan, you can kind of do it however you want because really no one's going to see all the layers. And if they're absolutely perfect, you can kind of just do it, play it by ear. So I'm using, like you can see some of these noodles ripped. It doesn't really matter as long as you fill it in with something. So if I need to rip off a little piece of another one and stick it in there to patch it up, no big deal. All right, so we're gonna do one layer first that's just noodles. And as you can see, my pan's a little funny shaped, so I just need to patch in some extra wherever. Doesn't have to be perfectly covered. And then we're gonna do a layer of sauce. Make sure to get lots of sausage in there. And just kind of spread it out. If you get big chunks in it, no worries. That just means you're gonna get a couple really, really good bites. All right, and then just make sure you've got good enough coverage of your sauce that you can't really see your noodles so much. And now it's time for a layer of cheese. So this part you do not need to measure. As long as you like cheese and just cover it with however much you feel like. This is why I say get an extra big bag. Because you're going to end up using a lot more than you think. It's really the glue that holds all this together. All right, so we've got a layer of sauce in the bottom, layer of noodles, more sauce, and cheese. We're kind of going to do that whole process again. So another layer of our noodles. Oh, these are hot. Oh my goodness. You can see the steam coming off of them. All right. Another layer. And on this weird side that we had to patch in. Like really, I don't know why they try to have these hold together. They never do. They always break on me. I don't know if there's a trick that I'm missing, but no big deal. All right, so another layer of noodles and another layer of sauce. Make sure to drain off some of the extra so you get more sausage. Now some people like theirs a lot more saucy. Some not so much. I like it with quite a bit of sauce. That way you're not worried about your noodles burning to your pan if it's got lots of extra sauce to sit in. All right, that should be about good. And we'll cover it with some more cheese. You can kind of do however many layers fit in your pan if you want a really tall one, or if you just want to stick with 2 or 3 layers of noodles, up to you. Just enough cheese so your sauce isn't really poking through. I think I'm going to do 1 more layer. All right. And back to our noodles. Well, these ones came out pretty nice. Ooh, about burning my fingers. All right, patch in that side. And 1 last layer of our sauce. Try to scoop out as much of the sausage as we can. The whole kitchen smells so good right now. I cannot even tell you. Having tomato sauce cook on your burners, oh, just makes everything smell so comforting. All right. All right, and now the last layer of cheese. Now at this point, you kind of just want to go crazy on the cheese because that's what's going to be all nice and oozy and bubbly. And some people also like to throw in some shredded parmesan on top. Really, whatever cheese you like and have around would work. All right. Nice even coverage. All right, now we're all assembled. So really at this point, if you had more pans and you wanted to make more, you can kind of just keep going. Now that you have your little station set up of your noodles, your sauce, your cheese, you can kind of just keep making with your big assembly line and just keep going. Freeze a couple extra if you want, send some to the neighbors, up to you. But now we're gonna take this, cover it in some foil. It's gonna go in the oven for about 20 minutes with the foil on, because that's gonna keep the cheese from burning. So that way it has time to actually cook all in the middle. So 20 minutes with the foil on, and then for the last like 5 minutes, take the foil off and let your cheese kind of bubble and get brown. So we're gonna put this in the oven for about 20 minutes. And we'll be back. All right, so our lasagna's been in the oven for about 20-25 minutes. Now we're gonna check on it and see how we're doing, see if we need to take our foil off. I didn't mention this earlier, but if you're ever worried about like your lasagna boiling over or like bubbling some sauce onto the floor of your oven, you can always just slide like a big sheet pan right underneath it, just in case. All right, let's take this out. Ooh, it's hefty. Let's see where we're at. Be very careful taking this off. So you can see there's quite a bit of steam. Oh, that looks perfect. All right, so you can see your cheese isn't browned yet, but everything is super bubbly underneath. So now we're gonna slide this guy back in the oven for about 5 minutes. You can turn the broiler on if you wanna speed it up, but you have to watch it really carefully because it can burn super fast. So I'm gonna pop this guy back in the oven for about 5 minutes. All right, we'll see how it looks. All right, so our lasagna's been in with the tin foil off for about 5 minutes. I checked on mine after 5 and it wasn't quite where I wanted it to be, so I let it go for another 2 to 3. Just kind of keep checking on it until Your cheese is bubbly, maybe a little bit brown. If you like it crispy, let it go a little longer. Just make sure not to burn it. All right, so I think we're good now. We're gonna pull it out. Oh, that looks perfect. And this is where it's really nice to have that pan underneath, just in case when you're taking it out, anything drips. That way you're not scraping it off the bottom of your oven. Oh. As you can see, the sauce, there's a little bit left pooled on top, but not much. Not nearly as wet as it was before. Now you definitely want to let this sit for at least a good 20 minutes before you try to cut into it, because right now it is molten hot like lava. You can see it's still bubbling. But the nice part is, after it cools, you can cut it, serve it, and eat it. Otherwise, you could let it cool completely just like this, put a lid on it and pop it in your freezer, or even cut it into little segments. I like to put mine in little baggies. That way, you know, grab and go. Just get one little serving out of the freezer at a time, pop in the microwave, and you're good. Yeah. So we're probably going to eat here pretty shortly, but this has been our first episode of Miss Emily's Kitchen. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this, because it's been so much fun doing this. And I can't wait to do a lot more. We'll see you next time. First one of these never comes out very nicely. We're gonna do our best. You know you did a good job if there's a lot of cheese stretch that comes with it. This is super hot, but I'm gonna try it. I normally want to let it sit a little longer than this, but I'm too excited. I don't think we're gonna have any problem finishing that whole pan.